Before we start, we should not forget to ask the presence of God. So kindly stand up, and Lawrence Ann, please lead the prayer. Amen. Okay, good morning, class. Okay, you may now take your seat. Who is absent today? Oh, good to hear that. Very good. So, before we proceed to our discussion, class, I have a clarifications. We have a class rules, okay? Our class rule number 1, listen to the teacher when she speak. And number 2, raise your hand before speaking, okay? And number 3, participate and cooperate actively. And number 4, work hard and have fun. So, now, start our lesson. Let's have an activity first. So, the name of our activity is called the Search Me. All you need to do is encircle all the given words on the table. So, I'll give you 5 minutes to find those words, okay? Okay, class, are you done? Okay. So, what words did you find in the table? Anyone? Yes, John Ray? Yes, conditional. And another one? Who else? Okay, Anna Marie, stand up. V. Okay, hypothesis. Thank you. And another one. Who else? Okay, Sir Ham, stand up. Yes, conclusion. Okay, thank you. Who else? Oh, Lawrence Ann. The converse. Okay, thank you. And another one. The. Okay. Okay, Logil, stand up. The contrapositive. More? There's more? There's more? Yes. Rinalyn, stand up. What it is? The and verse. Okay. Okay, we will have the conditional, hypothesis, conclusion, converse, contrapositive, and the inverse. Okay, class, before we continue our discussion, let us read the following objectives. So, at the end of the discussion, we will able to define the conditional propositions, identify different forms of hypothesis and conclusions, and the last one is illustrate different forms of conditional propositions. So, first, let's define the conditional propositions. So, when we say conditional proposition, if two propositions are connected by the pair if and then. So, the word if, that is our hypothesis, and it also write as P. And after the word then, that is our conclusions, or it also write as Q. So, suppose P and Q are propositions. From the conditional propositions Q implies P, we derive three conditional statements. Namely, it's converse, it's contrapositive, and the last one is the inverse. So, when we say converse of conditional statement, it is right as Q implies to P. So, when we say converse, if Q, then P. So, it says that if it is Q, then it is P. So, the contrapositive of the conditional statement says that it is right as the negation of Q implies the negation of P, and it says that the contrapositive of the conditional statement is, it says that if it is not Q, then it is not P. And the inverse of the conditional statement, it says that it is right as the negation of P implies the negation of Q. So it says that If it is not P, then it is not Q. Okay? Here are some examples of hypothesis and conclusions. So, class, you need to remember that in order for you to find the conclusion of or in order for you to find the hypothesis and the conclusions of the sentence, you need to arrange first into a conditional proposition. So, example number 1, if I get the bonus, then I will buy a car. Do you think it is right in a conditional proposition? Yes. So it says that if I get the bonus, then I will buy a car. So our hypothesis will be I get the bonus, and our conclusions will be I will buy a car. Okay, example number 2 is Mary will be a good student if she studies hard. Do you think it is written as in a conditional statement? So we need to arrange first into a conditional statement. So it says we need to write the conditional statement, which is if Mary studies hard, then she will be a good student. So what would be our hypothesis? Our hypothesis would be Mary studies hard, and our conclusions, it says that if Mary studies hard, then our conclusions will be Mary will be a good student. Okay, another example. John takes calculus only if he has a sophomore, junior, or senior standing. So did you think it is written as a conditional propositions? Okay, no. So we need to arrange, or we need to write in a conditional proposition. So in a conditional proposition says that if John takes a calculus, then he has a sophomore, junior, or senior standing. So what would be our hypothesis? What do you think? What would be our hypothesis? So our hypothesis would be John takes calculus. Then our conclusions will be John has a sophomore, junior, or senior standing. Okay, last example is a sufficient condition for Anna to visit France is that she goes to the Eiffel Tower. So what do you think? So we need to write it in a conditional proposition. So first, says that if Anna goes to Eiffel Tower, then she visits France. So our hypothesis will be Maria goes to Eiffel Tower. Then our conclusions, Maria visits to France. In order for you to write the hypothesis and the conclusion of the statement, you need to find first their conditional propositions. So remember that the conditional propositions are the two propositions that it has if and then. Here are some examples of converse, contrapositive, and inverse. So example number 1 is if it rained last night, then the sidewalk is wet. So our P is it rained last night, then the sidewalk, our Q is then the sidewalk is wet. So did you remember, class, that in order for us to find the converse of the conditional statement, we need to put first the Q and then implies P. So in a conditional statement of if it rained last night, the sidewalk is wet. So our converse will be if the sidewalk is wet, then it rained last night. Okay, guys, did you get my point? Okay, did you get that? Our P is it rained last night. Then our Q or our conclusions, the sidewalk is wet. So to write this in a converse, to write the converse of this conditional statement, we need to write first the conclusion or the Q. So the converse of this statement is, if the sidewalk is wet, then it rained last night. Okay, now let's proceed to find the contrapositive of this statement. So did you remember that conditionals to find the contrapositive of the conditional statement, we need to find the negation of Q, and then implies the negation of P. So the contrapositive of this statement is that if the sidewalk is not wet, then it did not rain last night. Did you get it? Okay. Our Q is the sidewalk is wet, right? And our P is it rained last night. So in the contrapositive, we need to put the negation of Q implies the negation of P. So if the statement, if the conditional proposition statement, or the conditional statement is, if it rained last night, then the sidewalk is wet. So our contrapositive will be, if the sidewalk is not wet, then it did not rain last night. So to find another one, to find the inverse of this conditional statement, we need to find first the negation of P implies to negation of Q. So remember guys that inverse is the opposite of contrapositive. So we need to find first the negation of P instead of the negation of Q. So if the statement is, if it rained last night, then the sidewalk is wet. So our inverse will be, if it did not rain last night, then the sidewalk is not wet. Okay, example number 2. Conditional statement number 2 is, if Ariel is grade 11, then he is a senior high school student. So our P is Ariel is grade 11, and our Q is he is a senior high school student. So to find the converse of this statement, we need to write first the Q and the implies by P. So if the statement is Ariel is in grade 11, then he is a senior high school student. So our converse is, if Ariel is a senior high school student, then he is a grade 11. The contrapositive of this statement is that, did you remember guys that to find the contrapositive of the conditional statement, you need to find first the negation of Q implies the negation of P. So the contrapositive of this statement is, if Ariel is not a senior high, then he is not grade 11. And to find the inverse of this statement, did you remember that to find the inverse of the statement, you need to find first the negation of P implies the negation of Q. So the negation of this statement is, if Ariel is not grade 11, then he is not a senior high school. Did you get my point? Okay, let's proceed to another example. So our conditional statement is, if it is consumed in a large volumes, then chocolate can be harmful to one's health. So our P is consumed in a large volumes, and our Q is chocolate can be harmful to one's health. So to find the converse of this statement, you need to find first the the conclusion or the Q, and then implies by our hypothesis or P. So the converse of this statement is, if chocolate can be harmful to one's health, then it is consumed in large volume. So let's find the contrapositive of this statement. So the contrapositive of this statement, you need to find first the negation of Q implies the negation of P. So it implies that if the contrapositive of this statement is, if chocolate can be harmful to one's health, then it is not consumed in a large volume. So next, let's find the inverse of this statement. So the inverse of this statement is that the negation of P implies the negation of Q. So the inverse of this conditional statement is, if it is not consumed in a large volumes, then chocolate can be not harmful to one's health. So another example is, Leah will be given the chance to perform on stage. Leah will sing all her classic songs. So let's find the converse of this statement. So the converse of this statement will, if Leah will sing her classic songs, then she will be given the chance to perform on stage. So now let's proceed to find the contrapositive of this statement. So it is the negation of Q, or the negation of the conclusions, and implies the negation of the hypothesis. So the contrapositive of this statement is, if Leah will not sing her classic songs, then she will not be given the chance to perform on stage. And now let's proceed to the inverse of this conditional statement. So a conditional statement, the inverse of this is, you need to find first the negation of P implies the negation of Q. So the inverse of this statement is, if Leah will not be given the chance to perform on stage, then Leah will not sing all her classic songs. Did you get my point? Okay, let's proceed to another example in order for you to deeply understand our topic. So another example is, if at least one student sleep in class, then Jane give a difficult quiz to wake up the students. So our P would be, at least one student sleep in class. Then our conclusions will be, Jane gave a difficult quiz to wake up the students. So to find the converse of this statement, we need to find first the Q, or the conclusions, and then implies to P. Okay, then if the statement, if at least one student sleep in class, then Jane gave a difficult quiz to wake up the students. So our converse is, if Jane give a difficult quiz to wake up the students, then at least one student sleep in the class. Then let's find the contrapositive of this statement. So did you remember that in order for you to find the contrapositive of this statement, you need to find first the negation of Q implies the negation of P. So the contrapositive of this statement is that, if Jane did not give a difficult quiz to wake up the students, then no students sleep in the class. So now let's proceed to find the inverse of this statement. So to find the inverse of this statement, we need to find first the negation of P, or the negation of our hypothesis, and the negation of our conclusion. So the inverse of this conditional statement is, if no students sleep in class, then Jane did not give difficult quiz to wake up the students. Class, do you have any questions? Okay, if you don't have any questions, let's have a group activity, and that would be assessed by Ma'am Angeline.
So now, let's have a group activity. In this activity, you will work as a team. Let's group yourself into 3. For our direction, it is think some conditional proposition into their equivalent if P then Q format. Then identify which phrase is the hypothesis P and which is the conclusion Q. And the next direction is think of a conditional statement cite its converse, contrapositive, and inverse. I will give you 15 minutes to answer this activity. So now it's already time. Pass all your papers. Do you have any question? So if you have no question, let's proceed to the next activity with the individual activity. The direction is using conditional proposition into their equivalent if P then Q format, then identify which phrase is the hypothesis P and which is the conclusion Q. I will give you 10 minutes to answer this activity. So now it's already time. Pass all your papers. So now I have a question. How can we use conditional proposition in a non-mathematical context? Anna Marie, what is your idea? Okay, very good. So, Renalyn, what is conditional proposition? Okay, very good. Next question is, what is hypothesis? Sherwin. Okay, very good. And next question is, what is conclusion? Lawrence Ann. Okay, very good. Next question is, what is converse statement? Lujil. Okay, very good. What is contrapositive statement? John Ray. Okay, very good. What is inverse statement? Lauren Joy. Okay, very good. So now, do you have any question? Get 1/4 sheet of paper, and for our quiz is multiple choices. I will give you 10 minutes to answer this activity. Okay, class, it's already time. Let's check. Number 1, A. Number 2, A. Number 3, B. Number 4, C. Number 5, C. Number 6, B. Number 7, D. Number 8, B. Number 9, A. Number 10, C. So, who got the highest score? Okay, very good. So, now class, do you have any question? Clarification. Okay, goodbye class. See you in next meeting.